listening to the Ice Prep Podcast. Here's your hosts, Brian and Pat.
Are you playing with tiny hands?
Yeah.
I feel like Pat's been on TikTok a little bit lately if he has the TikTok tiny hands.
Oh no, I've got 2 pairs and a whole bunch of other gestures and stuff. I don't know. I saw them a year ago, ordered them from Wish, and then they took 6 months to show up because I'm pretty sure they fell in between the seats of the delivery driver's car. They're fun. They're stupid, but they're fun.
All of a sudden I was like, what is he doing?
Just after we finished talking about how we fidget too much, I'm like, more things. So, as you can hear with cough.
I mute myself so nobody else can hear it, only Pat can.
As you can't hear with that cough, I'm warning everyone listening right now, you're going to hear way too much of my stupid voice because Brian, our best friend Brian here, is under the weather.
Not COVID, though, surprisingly.
No, you just had to get a puffer just so you could talk.
Breathe.
So,
yeah.
Breathe.
And I already had to take it tonight, so hopefully I don't go into another coughing fit. Yay, which is so much fun.
Yeah, so with that all being said and done, we are probably going to be doing a rather short episode just because I don't want to kill Brian here. He needs to go to sleep and get some sleep. Yeah, he needs to rest up because hockey season is only 11 days.
Yeah, we're less than 2 weeks away now. Preseason is just going strong. Games happening right now, which has been...
It's not going strong. It's going weak.
Okay.
Everyone's made of glass.
No. Okay. Except for in the Anaheim, Arizona game where there was 106 penalty minutes last night.
Yeah. Well, one person was made of human and took a dump truck worth hit in the head.
Zegras literally did what coaches tell you not to do. Go through the middle with your head down. And that's what he did. And all that, Cassian, the new guy, getting into a fight there. You don't normally see that in a preseason game. And that probably wasn't even the strangest thing of the night last night in preseason hockey.
Yeah.
Does Pat know where I'm going with it?
I sure do, and I probably can volley with that too. Last night being Wednesday night, so the 28th, Toronto Maple Leafs played hockey.
They started with 6 defensemen.
Yeah, they started with 6 defensemen. And then 2 more got hurt. So the Toronto Maple Leafs, half of their roster, it seems, were people that were flirting with being able to play in the big leagues, and then big names like John Tavares. A good mix of players. I want to say there's 10 or 11 people.
Yeah, they've got a lot on the injured list, and what ended up happening was Cal Yarncrook, one of the newest Leafs, and then Kerfoot going on to defense, and they looked good during it. So it was that of all the players that they have, if Marner was playing, I feel like he would have been one of them. You know that established guys, they're going to be the ones that are going to go play the role that they're not normally going to. But on the team, I've argued on this podcast that Marner should be a defenseman.
Well, so after yesterday's game, reports came out that apparently Marner has been playing some defensive time on the offseason. He has been training in a defensive role. I'm not 100% sure what that means. I doubt anything will actually come from it. It would have been, if that happened in a regular season game, absolutely, that's a handy thing to have. They're not going to slot him in defense. They're paying defensemen. They need to play defense. But I think it's actually really smart to be doing that because that's putting him in a more defensive mindset on top of already being a very good forward. They're really trying to build up even further his two-way play. I think that's actually really smart, and he clearly has the assists and goal scoring part kind of wrapped up for the most part. Why not build the other side?
Well, it's literally the Brent Burns. That's exactly what he did. He was drafted as a forward, played as a forward for the Minnesota Wild, and got put on defense. And that's when he really started to shine. Like, you watch the way that he plays, he would be on above a Quinn Hughes level, just below a Cale Makar of like defensive superstar with the way that he plays, the way that he skates, the way that he moves. That's we're going on a whole other tangent here, but Kerfoot and Calle Yarncrook, they look good playing defense.
Definitely good.
Who are they playing? Was it Montreal? Yes.
Yep.
Because both teams came out wearing the 50th anniversary Summit Series Canada jerseys. Bad look for Montreal that they did not look good in that game. Obviously, preseason does not matter, but it's like the Leafs when they lost against Zamboni Driver. An opportunity presents itself, and they did not take advantage of it. Even when the Habs played the Devils, like the Devils lose Nico Hischier during it. Jack Hughes doesn't go on the trip. Yeah, they've got some of their guys, but the Habs, it just seems like something's not clicking right now, and I don't know if that's they still don't know what's going on in goal or...
Well, that's a big, big issue. If Jake Allen is your primary, that's not good. That's not 5 to 7 years ago when he was, if you want to call it his prime in his prime. I don't know. It wasn't that, like, they didn't get blown out. They lost 3-0. It wasn't anything terrible. Matt Murray looked great, which, good for him. I'm actually glad to see him bounce back. Last year was a really tough year for him. So, it's nice just as a personal side of things. It's nice to see him performing well. Montreal didn't have as many of their big guns playing yesterday either. Like, I'm not saying Toronto did, but they had Kerfoot, they had Calle Yarncrook, they had Nicky Bob, so Nick Robertson, he was on the ice, and they had TJ Brody. So they had some like pretty solid names on there, whereas Montreal had a lot of their young people, and like Slavkovsky was on there too. So they were probably looking to see him break out a bit more, but you have a top tier defenseman of TJ Brody that for sure was paired against him when he was on the ice almost every single time. He's not there yet. He's still young. He still needs conditioning. He still needs time. And like, he might have a breakout year, sure, but it's not going to be during the preseason.
No.
Because why would it be?
And from all of that, the reason why this is kind of important, because one of the players that everybody was talking about, Rasmus Sandin, still wasn't signed. What happened this morning? Signed to a 2-year deal for the value that was literally leaked that he didn't want, like he wanted more way back when, and not a good look for his agent, because that one you have to feel like is on his agent more than it's on the player or on Dubas. So Sandin will get top 4 minutes. That much is a guarantee.
At least for a bit.
And this, just seeing, I was looking at our hockey as we were talking. Before we went on, we were talking about, or we might have been earlier in the day, I don't remember, about Galchenyuk released from his PTO. What's he going to do? News came out that, he was released because he got hurt. He's going to be out for a significant amount of time. The Avs are still looking to bring him on if he gets healed and if he's looking good. So it wasn't that he was released because his play was bad. He was released because he was literally injured, and he is still a player that the Avalanche are interested in. So that really changes what was being said about him, because online everybody was like, "Oh, is he going over to like Switzerland now to play?" Or,
you know what? That's good. I don't know. Maybe I think a lot of people that follow hockey pretty in depth kind of have a soft spot for Galchenyuk. I don't think many people really hate him, minus Toronto Maple Leafs fans, because of him doing a wonderful pass to the Montreal Canadiens player to lose the game. But here's this kid that he was overhyped to a detriment. He He came in, he was expected to be this fantastic player, could never live up to the bar that was set, and he's been passed around to like 30 teams, it feels like. And every team's like, we're gonna fix him, we're gonna fix him, we're gonna fix him. It's like, you meet a toxic person, you're like, oh, but I can change them. No, you can't.
He's
So I
the
was really
NHL's
hoping.
ultimate reclamation project, and nobody's been able
Yeah.
to make it work. The skill's there. It's just it seems like once the comfort sinks in, you could see it on Toronto, that the skill was there, and then he would get comfy, and then the skill would kind of dip off because he'd start playing lax, and it was like, oh,
Well, see, and
okay.
that's why I thought that Colorado might be a good place, because if there is one person on the ice that will ruin someone's life because they played poorly, that man's name is Nathan McKinnon. And he would verbally destroy him if he saw him just go, oh, okay, I've earned my spot. I'm going to rest now, because that's not the case. Especially in Colorado, in the third to fourth lines right now, there's really no tops or bottom six that's set. They have a lot to pull from. They saw some really good work out of preseason. I liked Jean-Luc Foudy. I liked Olesen as well. Even Kaut, like, he's fighting so hard to get in. He knows that this is sort of his last year to play in the big leagues, at least with Colorado. So you've got, and all three of those are going to be playing for the Colorado Eagles, so their AHL team. So you've got these three players that are desperate to break in. You have to fight for that spot right now, and there's opportunity because there were enough people that left in the off season. So it's going to be an interesting year when it comes to the bottom depth, and it's exciting the fact that there's this many people fighting for that. But yeah, geez, the injury bug, it's so bad. It's so bad this season. Is it worse than usual? Like, it feels like teams are like really getting into huge holes here.
I don't know if it is or if it's like because the last 2 years, it's just been a weird start to the season.
Maybe, yeah.
And there's a lot of people that are like, well, this could be the lingering effects of COVID on players still, or them finally getting the chance to recoup, and then it's so different because it was like the very condensed preseason or the off season before, so they're almost like having to recondition themselves. So
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but there's also a lot, if you watch especially the highlights, like fringe players that you can tell they're going crazy trying to get a roster spot because they know, everybody else knows, the cap is going to go up. It's going to go up 1 or 2 million next year. They're saying there's a good chance that in the next 3 or 4 years it will be up above 90 million, so a good like $6-7 million jump in there. So you've got a lot of players that are like, I've got to get seen now because I want a piece of that pie. And I think that's why we're seeing some craziness in preseason, because they're like, I can't be sent back down. I got to get time up here so I can get paid.
Yeah, and the games, they feel intense. Like, I've never watched a preseason where each game watching it, there's, I mean, except for when Colorado got shelled by Vegas, but like each game that I've watched has felt like really close and like heated, and like there was something on the line, and there is for each and every single one of these players individually. And I think that this is how preseason should be. It should be intense, not great hockey, but
No.
intense hockey, because it's everybody trying to make themselves look amazing and not really working as a team. So,
Well, that's why you look at certain teams like the Leafs. I don't think they've played Marners or Matthews yet. Obviously, Tavares is injured, so he won't. Nylander needs the time, but a lot of teams, they're like top couple guys. If they don't want to, they don't do preseason games. They will skate and do all the practice stuff, but they stay out of those first games because they know they're going to get run at. Like the last maybe 2 or 3 preseason games, you'll start to see the full rosters going up against each other, and that's when you can kind of get a little bit better of an idea. But right now, it's Like the Devils are what 3-0 in the preseason. That means nothing. I think the Devils went like 4-1 last year, and look where that got us.
And honestly, the first 2 weeks, as we've learned from Buffalo, that the first even month doesn't really particularly matter, because all it takes is just one small stretch right after a good run, and you're toast. Yeah, and I think I can't remember who I heard it from, but somebody pointed out once that the reason that everybody looks real bad out of the gate usually is because it takes time for defensemen to relearn defense. You can't, like, if you're an offensive player, you can pass, you can shoot, you can do all the offensive things by yourself every day. Defense, you can't.
Well, that's why usually you see the first like 2 or 3 weeks, it's just people are putting up hat tricks, 2-goal, like it's high scoring, crazy hockey, and then it starts to simmer down a little bit. That's why sometimes the first couple games you really can't tell what your team's going to be like, but it's fun to watch because you just don't know what you're going to get, and that's how we ended up with what being like, I can't even remember, it was some like unknown player topping the charts for like points for a couple days, and everybody was like, "Oh my god!" And then they were like in the AHL a week later.
Yeah. Well, and last season, I was like, well, that was fun. It's done. Colorado's washed. We're done. The first month and a half with our injury-ridden team. We're done. It's over.
The Avs were still like a 600 team, and Pat's like, nope, just sell, get rid of the team. You guys were never not in a playoff position essentially the entire season.
2 for 10. They were 2 for 10 out of the gate.
Didn't they have wins before that, though? They didn't start the season 2-10.
They started really bad.
They were still close enough to 50% that it was like, okay. And you didn't have like half of your superstars.
You didn't have James.
And then
was hurt. That's all. That was it.
And then after that, what'd you guys do? Set a new franchise records for wins in a row at home, and go on to win the cup at the end of it. So that's why hockey's 82 games in the regular season, right?
Yeah. And that's why I hate that every season I'm just like, here we go, and then they poop the bed, or they start out terrible, and I'm just like, well, I'm done, and then I do it every year.
At least when your team pooped the bed, it was just awful when they pooped the bed.
Yeah.
And then they bounce back, and they've just kind of been back ever since. My team pooped the bed, got a slight glimmer of the playoffs, and then we've been a bottom feeder for 7 of the last 8 years? So,
see, that's a tough one, though, because
losing the Stanley Cup Finals, lose 2 of your top players, and then your team's terrible for almost a decade.
Yes, but it also depends on the division that you're in. And the division you're in it's
finally starting to decline.
Yeah, but it's been the peak division. Like every friggin' good team that everyone talks about that continues to be on a roll for some reason is all in your division, and then there's 2 elsewhere.
Though the last 2 years, I would put the Atlantic as the best division in hockey. It doesn't start the season that way, but by the time you get to the trade deadline, you're like, oh, the Atlantic, because you look at the Metro and you're like, oh wow, there's a lot of teams down there that are bad.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. They're either really damn good or really damn bad.
It was 3 good teams in the Metro, 5 bad teams, whereas the Atlantic, Buffalo started bad, but the second that you played them in the second half of the season, you were playing a playoff team. Florida won the President's Trophy. Leafs had the most points they've ever had. Tampa was still Tampa. And then the rest of them were terrible.
If you swapped, let's say, with San Jose for some reason, you would be not a bottom feeder team. You'd be in the hunt every single season.
Oh, we would be the Minnesota, though. We'd just like mediocre all the time.
Yeah, but at least he wouldn't be running people. Now that
That's true.
Subban's gone, like you're not taking people out.
That's true. That is true. Yeah, it's just crazy looking. So hockey starts up in, what are we now? 11 days, I think, something like that. Which
11,
is
12, yeah.
which is crazy. So the 13th for us will be our first kind of probably big episode back, where there'll be hockey on when we're chatting, which I'm looking forward to once again. Just kind of having the scoreboard where I can see everything that's going on as we're talking.
I did not like that during the playoffs.
Oh no, yeah, Pat, during the playoffs.
Oh,
I think it might have helped you a couple times though when we were broadcasting during Avs games, because I think there was one where the Avs were losing, and I could hear it on you, and they came back to win that game. But if you were watching and the camera was on you, I think we would have saw like the white just appear in real time on your face.
I'm not gonna lie, my beard was predominantly brownish red at the start of the playoffs, and now I looked in the mirror like 2 days ago and it's like 50-50. It is it is really starting to show through. So these playoffs gave me more gray hairs than I don't think anything else in my life right now, which probably says a lot about me as a human. But
become a parent, all of a sudden you're just like, oh my god, there's grays and white everywhere.
I mean, that's already happening. That happened to me when I was 19.
Yeah, I was gonna say when I first met you, you were already going gray up there.
Yeah. So like this is just a thing. It's a thing that's gonna happen for the rest of my life. I'm just glad that I have hair that can turn gray. That's all I'm gonna say.
Since we're off hockey and I'm looking at you covering up your hair, can we talk about how that team got into the playoffs today without playing?
Yeah.
For those who are listening, Pat is wearing a blackout Blue Jays cap. And they made it into the postseason today with Boston beating Baltimore. So the Jays are officially back in. They still have a chance to take the top wildcard spot, which I believe is a very big thing. I can't remember how the new format, because it's the new format this year, but I think it at bare minimum guarantees the Jays have a best of 3 at worst. But I believe right now that would mean that they would go up against, I don't remember if it's Houston or not. I don't know. I'd have to look it up. But Jays back in the postseason is going to be good. Hopefully they can figure it out, because they haven't looked good lately.
They've looked 500.
They've looked like a team of individuals and not a team that wants to win.
Yeah.
And whereas last year they looked like a straight up team that was they just couldn't get in. This year I think they're going to struggle if they get in, but who knows? Once we can have less pitchers, it's a good thing for this team, because we have a lot of bad pitchers.
Oh my god. if I ever hear Kikuchi's name again,
other teams love him because they know Jays fans are going to be like, "Oh no!"
He comes in and it's just like the Jays were winning 9-0 going into the third inning. Kikuchi comes in as relief because somebody got hurt, and he lets up 6 runs and 2 hits. Like, how? How does he do that? Oh, because he walked like 11 people. Like, he's so bad, and they've tried him so many different places. They even put him in as a relief pitcher, and he somehow almost screwed that up. Like, oh my god.
There has to be somebody in Buffalo who's better. Please,
of course there is.
please do the swap for the extended roster, because I don't think any of us can. I don't think any of us can can take it, because oh my god. We don't want to. We don't want to be Cleveland or Miami come postseason, and just no.
And like, I don't follow baseball as closely as I do with hockey, but this year has been pretty, or the past couple of years actually have been really fun to watch the Blue Jays. They've got a team of people that just, it's why I like Trevor Zegras is because he likes to have fun, and it's a sport, it's a game. Literally, it's called a game, and he wants to have fun while playing the game, which sounds like what everyone should be doing. And the Toronto Blue Jays, they seem to kind of embrace that. They have fun. They
It's
joke
like
around.
a lot of other fan bases hate the home run jacket. I love it. I love
Yeah,
that they
it's a thing.
celebrate that. Like
Yeah.
I'm amazed other teams haven't started adapted something like that. And that's
Padres have something.
yeah,
They
they
have
they
the
do have
chain.
the chain, which isn't all that surprising. And the one thing, it is unfortunate just thinking back to earlier this year. I can't remember if it was Vladdy or somebody else. I think there's only been three homers in a game for a Jays player this year, and it was away because I love how Rogers Center basically turns into a hockey rink because
Yeah.
the home run horn is already a goal horn, and the
Yeah.
hats just fly. I can remember Edwin getting one a couple of years back, and he just the camera goes to him, and he was just in shock as like hats, 30,000 hats, like people throwing hats come flying. So baseball's different up here, is what we're trying to say. It's just a
Yeah.
little bit different, which is and this is perfect because last week we said we were going to talk about the wild card game that we went to, unintentionally
yeah.
bringing up the Jays because
And Edwin.
behind Pat is the rally towel for the wild card game that him and I went to. If I remember correctly, did I not message you like a day or two before being like, I have a spare ticket. Do you want to go?
Yeah, you messaged me, and I had just started doing some like freelance marketing work for this startup, and then I was like, yeah, I can't not go to that. So I moved around all of the meetings that were super important. I put them to the next day, which was the wrong choice.
Yeah, because that
But
went to extras. I mean, it
yeah,
didn't last long, but I think it was still maybe like 2-ish by the time we got home. Might have been later.
no, I remember I pulled into my parking lot where I was living at the time, and it was 3:22.
Okay, so it
I
was a
don't know
little bit
why I
later.
remember specifically that time, but yeah, because it's not far from where we are in London to Toronto. It's roughly 2 hour drive when
It's
there's no construction.
yeah.
So that means it takes 3 hours. But we decided to go. There's a train system that we can hop on about halfway, and it saves time when it comes to leaving and parking and costs of parking and everything. And we hopped on the GO train, as they call it,
From
from
Aldershot.
the Aldershot station, and we went to the game. The game went to 11 innings, and I remember sitting up in the nosebleeds, looking at you, going, the train's gonna end. Gas train's at midnight. How are we gonna get to Hamilton? And I
Yep.
was so worried because I didn't want to leave the game, but also, how are we going to get to the car? It is an hour and a half away on a train. So
Yeah, and of course, I think it might have been in the 10th or something like that. I believe there was a PA announcement where they were literally like the trains will be extending time because of this,
yeah,
and it was just like insane relief. Yeah, we're up in the nosebleeds. We're up in the like 4 or 5. I might have been the 500s. Second or first row, I can't remember. Might have been first row. It was first row
it
because
was
we were
close
able
to it.
to. You had your phone at the start of the game when they were unraveling the flag, flat up against. So it was
Right.
to do that. It was unreal. We were at the game where the guy threw his beer, ended up becoming a manhunt. He ended up getting fired from his job. That was the same game, and of course Edwin wins it with that home run. And the second that you could hear the sound, you knew it was over. I have never heard that stadium that loud. It was amazing.
And for me, I think one of the coolest parts, and it shows up every year now on my feed, is the day after, because there's so many phones that there's no cell signal. I couldn't upload any videos or even message people because there were so many people all like making phone calls and texting and trying to like post on Instagram. And this was like 6 years ago now, if not more. And yeah, it's about 6.
You'll find out on your memories here shortly because it's coming up.
True. But I remember so vividly, Edwin walked up to the plate, and I just said to myself, I was like, something's going to happen. And I grabbed my phone, I hit record, and literally seconds later, he hit the home run. So I happened to just start recording the home run just as he took his swing because I just had this hunch, and it was incredible. The whole place erupted. The hotel rooms that are built into the Rogers Center, which is actually should be called the Sky Dome because that's what it's originally called, and that's what it is to me. So they have hotel rooms that face out. You can rent them and watch the games and stuff. And they were throwing toilet paper and they're throwing their sheets. And I'm like, how are you going to sleep?
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Everything out of those rooms. It was so funny.
It was great. And everyone was high-fiving and cheering. I never felt an energy like that from like, how many people are in that stadium when it's full?
It's a lot. And the second that we were like that, the hype died down at first, we beelined it out of there to get to Union Station to get, no, it's not Union. It's somewhere else for the GO train, isn't it?
It's Union, but it's like
a little bit,
catacombs.
But we beelined it. And
we took the second train.
Yeah, we got the second train. My brain gets a little mixed up on this because when I bought those wild card tickets, I also took the chance at buying ALCS tickets. So I had ALCS tickets. So my then girlfriend, now wife, and I were at the worst game that the Blue Jays played all postseason. And there was something crazy going on with the train. And the one thing I will say, I don't believe the rules have changed. They may have. If you go to a baseball game, especially at Rogers Center, you can bring your own food in.
Mm-hmm.
Pat and I were mowing down on sandwiches that I brought. We were allowed, what?
Water bottles.
Yeah, water bottles. We each had a bottle of pop that we could go in if they could open the top off, so we didn't have the lid. So we were set. And people around us, they'd see us like pulling sandwiches out. They were like, what is going on over there? I've been at games and I've seen people pull out, I kid you not, a full-on like turkey meal.
Yeah. With like cutting board and everything.
It was,
which like the fact, like obviously they can't bring in their knives, so then they have to use plastic cutlery to carve a turkey, which sounds like a form of torture. But I did that actually because I just went to a Blue Jays game like a couple weeks back. I brought water bottles. I brought snacks. As long as you put it in a resealable bag, you can fill. I filled an entire bag of chips, and I just sat there munching on chips. I mean, I didn't drink any of the water. I drank more different beverages.
It's one of those weird things. Like, look it up before you go to a baseball game. Save yourself a ton of money. Like,
absolutely,
it's just one of those. There you go. Odd baseball life hack on a hockey podcast in September, just before October.
Just before all of the games end in baseball. Here is a tip for you.
Yes.
But no, that was definitely one of the coolest experiences in sports that I've ever been to. But I will say Vegas won for best show in the weird NHL awards that they handed out recently, where the Jersey won.
Oh yeah, the Jersey, the New Jersey Devils third, and I honestly think the reason that they won it was because of the hat.
Yeah, for sure it was the hat. Like that, like, and
people
the fact
still
that
try and get it.
Yeah, the proceeds from that went to charity, like a local charity, right?
They go to I can't remember what it is, and I don't want to mess it up. So.
But yeah, like that was a brilliant idea. The fact that everyone was making fun of them for having a jersey that said Jersey, and then they're like, "Well, screw it, we'll make a hat," and
the hat says
like,
hat.
That's so funny. I want that. And then because of that, because they didn't like try and be like, no, guys, for real though, it's super serious, promise. They just were like, yeah, you know what? It's funny that it's a jersey, and embraced the sort of like silliness of it.
Uh,
It made it go further.
there was the special edition shoes that were PK
Yep.
Subban edition. So like,
Yep.
yeah, the Devils went all in on it. Yeah. And I thought when you were going to say Vegas at first that, yeah, you got to see one heck of a show. The Devils essentially knocked them out of the playoffs run.
Yeah, and Boqvist made Leonard look real stupid.
Maybe that's what caused the hip injury.
Yeah, he just no, because like he didn't even see it. There was 3 defenders, including Pietrangelo, and he like it wasn't even a good goal, but like they put it in the highlights, and Leonard didn't even move. And I remember watching it, and I was like, "The hell was that?" I didn't say hell, but like I wasn't cheering for Vegas, but I was just like, "Come on, man, that's like at least make it look like you're trying." Put some effort in, and maybe he couldn't because maybe it was his hips were so bad, and I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. But yeah, no, that the Vegas game for sure, like they should win best show or whatever presentation, I think is what they called it. Yeah, it's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. I've told every single person that I know that are like, yeah, maybe I'll go to Vegas. You got to go to a game. Unbelievable.
I think that's a good place to end this one. We've had some hockey talk. We've talked about the Blue Jays who are on their way to the postseason. And yeah, my voice is starting to go anyway, so.
Yeah, that's probably a smart time.
Anything to add, Pat?
Just a little thing of, so we are recording on September 29th. Tomorrow here in Canada, it is Truth and Reconciliation Day. That is to honor, I don't even know if honor is the right word. I really wish I had prepared something, but it's to reflect on
reflection and education. Education being a big part of it, because it's basically been associated with not being taught or being hidden, being pushed aside for a long time in this country.
Yeah, like growing up in Canada and taking history classes my entire educational career and knowing nothing about, like, I never even heard of the term residential school. Maybe it was in my own personal ignorance, and which is why I should be educating myself further, and why I try my best to do so. But I'd never really even heard of this. And I have an incredibly close friend who is Indigenous, and like it felt like I had failed a person that I saw as family, not knowing what had gone on and knowing how much it deeply affected them because they're from Manitoba as well. So like, yeah, it's not something that was an if, it was most likely they were affected by the residential schools and the murders of the children there. So with that all being said and done, please look into causes. I know locally we have one called Inova, which is incredible. There's one, it's pretty easy to remember. It's called Orange Shirt Day. You can just go to their website, and every orange shirt that you purchase, $10 goes to it. I have my shirt. I was going to put it on and I just completely forgot. But absolutely donate, reflect. If you do have it off, certain provinces, not Ontario, but certain provinces have time to reflect and do so. Take a look into it and give back in any way that you can, because it's pretty heartbreaking what happened years ago, and the only thing that we can do is learn and do our best to prevent and try and be there for people that have suffered through it. So yeah.
And if you're listening to the radio at all on any station, you will hear a ton about it. Basically every single radio station that I know of teams up with the Gord Downey Foundation to air content all day for that. So no matter where you're listening tomorrow on the radio, you will hear stuff on that. Go look into it if you haven't already. Educate yourself on it. As Pat said, I had never heard of residential schools until recently. And that's ignorance on my part, but even more so on the education system for being like, this major part of Canada's history, we're not going to teach it to you.
Yeah. And it's just wrong. So do your best to right wrongs in any way you can. You can't repair what's happened, but you can try and change what goes on going forward. And that is my dog telling me to wrap it up. So I will end it there.
So we will talk to everybody next week. Have a good one.